Hello everyone, this is Juhi Dubey from MSc Microbiology, Part 2, and I'll be explaining a topic which is bioremediation. This session basically covers what is bioremediation, what are the factors which affect the bioremediation, what are the types of bioremediation, their advantages, disadvantages, and much more. Here we proceed for the same. The question arises that what is bioremediation exactly? Bioremediation is a process which involves the reduction, elimination, and alteration and transformation of contaminants. In short way, we can explain that bioremediation basically refers to a technique which occurs naturally by the use of fungi, green plants, or their enzymes naturally. That means there is reduction of the complex, that is toxic material, into their simplest forms. This image basically describes the bioremediation process as stated and mentioned above. We can understand that bioremediation is a waste management technique basically, and it also includes a series of redox reaction. That means there is involvement of oxidation as well as reduction in the process. Hence, we can say that bioremediation is a global, regional, and local application for removing the contaminants or the pollutants from the environment and restoring the contaminated sites as well. As we understood what is bioremediation, we must consider the points that what are the factors which basically are responsible for the bioremediation process. First factor which is responsible for the bioremediation process is concentration of a contaminant. Concentration of contaminant directly affects the microbial activity. As we can say that lower the concentration of contaminant is, the enzyme degrading capability will also be degraded exactly, and toxic effects are observed in the presence of higher concentration of contaminants. The decomposition rate of the catabolic enzymes can be increased by the synergistic interactions between the components of the contaminants. The first factor which is responsible for bioremediation was the concentration of contaminant. We'll move ahead with the second point, which is affecting the bioremediation, is nutrient availability. Nutrient availability, the basic requirements for the bioremediation process, that is requirement of carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and various other requirements which are basically responsible for the growth of microorganisms. And as the concentration of nutrient availability directly affects the degradation of the contaminants, the rate of bioremediation can also be determined by knowing the accessibility of organic matters towards the microorganisms. The third factor which is responsible for the bioremediation is surfactants, enhancers of bioavailability. Most of the chemicals and food grade surfactants are used for the increasing rate of the hydrophobic organic contaminants. The different organic contaminants which are basically used as chemicals for the enhancement of bioavailability are Triton 100, Twin 80 STS, and various others. Beside this, surfactants produced by the microbes are also used for the same. With some other factors which are responsible for bioremediation are as the first point is temperature. Yes, the degradation of contaminants is also affected by the temperature. This basically takes place especially in the case of hydrocarbons, which is both under in situ and ex situ conditions. It has been basically found that higher the temperature, if increases above 30 degrees Celsius to 40 degrees Celsius, the increase in bioremediation is also observed. This was about temperature. If we talk about pH, then the optimum pH which is required for the bioremediation process varies from 6 to 8. And basically neutral pH is suitable for the degradation of petroleum hydrocarbons. Yes, at last, but that's the most important point, that oxygen availability. Oxygen is very important factor to determine the extent and rate of biodegradation. And basically aerobic biodegradation, that is which takes place in the presence of oxygen, is far much more faster than the anaerobic biodegradation. These were the points which affect the bioremediation process. Further, we move ahead with the types of bioremediation. As before we saw the factors affecting, now we'll move ahead with the types of bioremediation. There are two types of bioremediation. First is in situ bioremediation and second is ex situ bioremediation. In situ, in the word itself, signifies that in situ remediation is the in-site treatment of contaminants. The in-site treatment of contaminants is basically done with the use of biological agents. Further, we'll talk about the in situ bioremediation techniques. So it basically involves five different techniques, in which the first is bioaugmentation. So this is the process of addition of culture microbial population which has the ability to degrade specific soil and groundwater contaminants. If we talk about biostimulation, so this is the process of environmental modification by addition of limiting nutrients and electron acceptors, which may be like phosphorus, nitrogen or other. If we talk about bioslurping, so this is basically a process. It is a multi-phase extraction process of in situ aerobic bioremediation. If we talk about what is biosparging, so biosparging is the process in which there is the injection of a gas and gas phase nutrient pressure into the saturated zone, applying pressure to promote the aerobic biodegradation process. Further, we move ahead with the next one, which is bioventing. So, bioventing is applied for the remediation of petroleum hydrocarbon contaminants and not any other in the process of bioremediation. Last is phytoremediation. So, phytoremediation in the name itself, it suggests that phytoremediation is the use of plant and its products for the decontamination or stabilization of the contaminants and metals which are from the soil. Basically, this was all about the in situ bioremediation process. We'll move ahead with the ex situ bioremediation process, which is also referred to as off site bioremediation process, and it basically involves the removal or excavation of contaminants and pollutants by the subsequent transportation of contaminants from one site to the other. If we talk about the techniques which are involved in the same, it is biopile. The biopile is a type of remediation process which involves the enhancement techniques via above ground piling of excavated polluted soil, nutrient, amendment, and sometimes the aeration to increase the microbial population and their activity. The second one which we are going to talk about is the bioreactor. Bioreactor is an engineered system involving a series of biological reactions in which pollutants are fed into the bioreactor vessel for the degradation process. The next is composting. Composting is a process of degradation and decaying of organic waste under favorable control conditions with action waste degrading microorganisms. And the last one is land farming. It is one of the simplest bioremediation process of excavation of polluted soil transported to above ground surface, allowing the aerobic biodegradation of pollutants by the microorganisms. So now we have seen what is bioremediation. We also saw the factors affecting the types. Now we'll move ahead with the advantages of bioremediation. So the first important advantage of the bioremediation is that it is very environmental friendly approach with the use of microorganisms. Instead, there is a use of highly harmful chemicals which basically are destroying our environment. So this is one of the best advantages of the bioremediation process. The next one is the minimum site destruction and disruption. The third is lower liability level, and the fourth one is low energy consumption. And the last but very important advantage of bioremediation is that it is very effective and reliable and easy approach. Basically, these were the advantages of bioremediation process. Further, we'll move ahead with the disadvantages of the bioremediation process. So the first limiting factor is that it is only limited to biodegradable waste and contaminants. The second is that it requires extensive of monitoring, which is not possible at some extent. And the next one is that being a biological process, a specificity is a major drawback in the terms of factors like environmental growth conditions, type of microorganisms, and much more. The next disadvantage of bioremediation process is that possibility of production of unknown and potentially toxic bioproducts can basically takes place. That is not even guaranteed. The last disadvantages which involves in bioremediation process is that it is comparatively time consuming process. So these were the advantages and disadvantages of the bioremediation process. So basically, in this entire session, we talked about what is bioremediation, what are the features, what are the factors of bioremediation, that is what are the factors which are responsible for the bioremediation. We also talked about the types of bioremediation, in which we talked about in situ bioremediation, and also we talked about ex situ remediation. We have also seen the advantages of bioremediation, and also we saw the drawbacks or the disadvantages of bioremediation. So I hope it was helpful for you all. These all are the references which I referred for introducing the topic, and also I covered the important topics of the bioremediation process as well. Thank you. I hope this video was useful for you all guys. Thank you.